Okay, this is a second speech, or not second, but the third one, I guess. Donald Trump is having trouble with these numbers, so I'm doing a political commentary trying to get basically campaigning for Trump through YouTube, and I'm trying to explain this to especially these Sanders people that aren't supporting Trump and why they need to be supporting Trump. And like I say, I'm an independent. I voted, independent. I voted for Ross Perot twice. I supported Jerry Brown when he ran. I supported Ralph Nader. I didn't vote for him, but I supported him. And I support the independents, the Jerry Brown, the Michael Moores, the Ross Perots, the Jesse Venturas, pretty much, the progressive Bernie Sanders and Jill Stein. But right now, and I think that, but like I said, like Bernie Sanders said, the only two viable candidates are Hillary and Trump. And I think Trump's the one. And I'm trying to convert some of these liberals that are voting that think, they're afraid of Trump. They're shorting him, I think. He's better. I think he's better than he's getting credit. And I think he's better than Hillary. And even with his numbers sagging right now, I can still see a lot of things with Trump where I think he's really the better. I think he'd be a really pretty good president, really. Better than ones one of the best we've had, right up there with Ronald Reagan and Ike Eisenhower, and Barry Goldwater would have been a good one, and Bobby Kennedy. These people, Bobby Kennedy, that was super good too, that he was never elected. But I think Trump would be right up there with these people. But the first thing, Hillary has a big lead on Trump right now. But if you look into it, if you look deeper into that problem, you'll notice first of all that, as Bernie Sanders pointed out, the Disney Corporation makes all their stuff overseas, and they hire foreigners, and they hire cheap labor. And Disney does not want Trump in there because he's opposed the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and he's strongly opposed to it. Well, Hillary's always been for it up till recently, and Hillary and her running mate both support the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And so Disney has been, Trump did a speech in Detroit where he talked about our need to get a better trade deal with China. And Disney didn't report on it at all. They just left it, or ABC, they didn't report on it at all. And then they came up with a whole lot of, deceptive stuff about Trump, how he wanted Hillary assassinated, where he really was just talking about the gun lobby and how powerful it was and how it would stop Hillary's gun control. But they made it sound like he was supported, thought they were going to shoot her, which that is not what he said. That's not. I don't think that's what he meant. Anyway, it's a bunch of deceptive lawyer tactics against Trump, and so that's why. And also, Hillary Clinton has $100 million in campaign money that came from the 1%. That's why she's ahead. So that's where she got all of her campaign money, and Trump hasn't had any negative campaigning yet. That's why she's ahead of Trump. So what does that mean? That means these Sanders supporters, when there's 90% of them supporting Hillary, and the only reason probably that Hillary is ahead is all of the negative campaigning she's been doing with the campaign money from the 1%. Who are Sanders supporters opposed to? The 99%, right? So they have been suckered by this 1% of the campaign money that Hillary got, that Hillary is using against Trump. They are like putty in the hands of the 1%. And that's what these Sanders supporters do not quite understand. They need to start understanding this. This is $100 million. And what does that mean? It means they're putty in the hands of the 1%. And also it means that Hillary had huge success. So what does that mean? She's ahead of Trump. The whole time she's president, she is going to do everything for the 1% so she can get that campaign money again and do the same thing to the next opponent she has in the next election. So what does that mean? That means the 1% is winning, and the Sanders supporters are all putty in their hands. Well, you could also make the case that Hillary brought out all the things she's going to do with, well, I'll bring up that later, I guess. The next thing to talk about, okay, several things. Trump needs to bring this out, first of all, what I just said, if he wants to save his campaign. That's another thing that he could bring out is start a campaign against Hillary Clinton and ABC. And that has to do with the fact that Dan Rather made the point when he got fired, right after he got fired. And he got fired right after the corporate media took over CBS. And it basically had to do with the corporate media. They didn't like what he was saying. They fired him. So that's not a free media. That's TV Moscow. Well, like Dan Adams said, it's a vital organ. The democracy. Without a free media, you don't have democracy. Well, it's this unfree media that's why Trump's numbers are so bad. It's this communist media, the via communists and the Disney and all this is why Trump's numbers are so terrible. Well, Trump needs to start. Why doesn't he start a campaign against them? They're preventing the people from getting their one man, one vote, essentially, and they're in bed with the 1%. And Bill Clinton signed a bill which gave the media to 1% around 1996, when Phil Donahue quit his talk show and all the other talk shows quit. A whole bunch of them, like the main ones. Then Oprah changed hers, so it wasn't so hard hitting. In the tobacco industry, they were slamming the tobacco industry pretty good. All of a sudden, that all stopped. With the corporate takeover of the media back in '96. Well, Bill Clinton's the one that signed that bill, and he had a motive for signing the bill. He didn't want competition from the independent party, and the independent party, the free media was supporting the independent party, that MTV especially, a lot of, and that's why he signed that bill to allow the corporate media to take over, so that they could stop the independent movement and quit taking votes away from the Democrats. Also, the fact, and Hillary's going to do the same thing. She's going to say the same thing Bill Clinton was, and Trump needs to bring this out. This is a good strong campaign against her. And the other thing, that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was instrumental in stealing the election from Sanders, and this has been made. I think it's on cable. I don't know where I heard this against. Well, anyway, Mika Brzezinski brought some of this out. And so Debbie Wasserman Schultz should not have been promoted. And if you put Hillary in there, it means that Hillary's cozy with corruption. And Mika Brzezinski, Debbie Wasserman Schultz called up Mika Brzezinski's boss, tried to get her fired after Mika Brzezinski brought out some of the things she was doing. And if Hillary promoted her, that Hillary shouldn't be in there, because it means she's cozy with corruption. And it's like organized crime a little bit, and basically it's communist, because that's what, if you ever understood the communist politics, it's like dog eat dog. It's kind of a dog eat dog type of thing. It's like corporate politics. It's like the show Survivor, and the other one, Big Brother. That's basically how communist politics works, and that's exactly the way she's conducting herself. And if she does that, if she's promoted Debbie Wasserman Schultz, that means she's cozy with corruption, and she has communist-like conduct, and will have it when she becomes president. That's what Nixon did with Edmund Muskie's campaign. They ruined his campaign. Hillary's part of that, ruined Sanders' campaign. So she's doing the same thing Richard Nixon did. Well, except that Nixon was a smart president. Hillary is not. Hillary doesn't know not near as smart as Richard Nixon, but you wouldn't want her in there either way, for either reason, I don't think. We had another problem is, in the past, she's supported the TPP. She's done everything pretty much that Bill O'Reilly or Rush Limbaugh would have done. And the people, and a lot of those people, and Mitch McConnell. And she's basically the same thing as Mitch McConnell. She's been in bed with corruption since day one. And the only time she's ever stopped or changed her mind was after Sanders talked to her. Well, here's the thing. She might do what Sanders wants, but her heart and soul isn't in it. And it's like I say, we had an assembly, when I was in junior high, where somebody from the General Motors came, and they showed us the suitcase, and he had to swing this. So they had some big jockish guy call him up, and he had to swing the suitcase directly perpendicular to his body. And so the one guy did it, and it worked real good, and they gave it to the jockey's guy, and the suitcase kept going off to the side, and he explained that there was a gyro in the suitcase. Well, you put someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger up there, he'd probably make it go straight, and counteract the gyro. Well, if someone tends, my point is that Donald Trump seems to be an independent. He thinks like an independent. He was going to run as an independent a long time ago. Independents tend to be salmons going upstream. So they always have they're like me. They want to stop corruption. That's in their heart and soul. But someone that doesn't have it in their heart and soul, they're always going to have to fight. It's like fighting that gyro. They're always going to have a tendency to move towards corruption. And Trump is the better one for this reason. And I can't understand why these people are reporting this, campaigning for Sanders on YouTube, why they don't bring this out, but none of them have. But Trump seems to be more heart and soul in stopping corruption than Hillary. Okay, the gyro analogy. Now let's see, I don't know if that helps it or not, but okay, another problem with ABC that I think is a very serious problem, and it has to do with a report they did recently on, so watched last night, that has to do with this drug called epipran, which has to do with food allergies. People have food allergies, and I had one once, where you get the wheezes real bad, and it can stop your breathing, and people have to have it to survive. Well, the cost of it went up 400%. They said Congress was going to investigate. It's a life or death drug. Well, what bothers me is if it's a life and death drug and the cost has gone up 400% and people can't afford it, why didn't they get to the bottom of the problem? The bottom of the problem is that they did bring out that there were no companies that made any other drug that made this drug. Well, the reason there's no other company, but they didn't bring out, has to do with the campaign finance corruption. It has to do with the pharmaceutical industry and the fact they won't let us go to Canada. They made a law, and John McCain brought it out. They won't let us go to Canada to buy drugs, and they have trademarks and copyrights on drugs, and they won't let people sell non-traditional treatments. They stomp out all their competition with the campaign money. Well, you can't stop the copyrights on drugs and allow other corporations to make the drug because the campaign money has Congress seized up. They control Congress with their campaign money. Well, why didn't ABC bring this out? Because, see, they are owned by Disney and they're in bed with the corruption too. So that's a serious problem. You don't have democracy and you don't have a capitalist system, either one, with this media, and Trump needs to bring this out. This media that has this serious axe to grind, conflict of interest, ulterior motive, hidden agenda. Trump needs to bring this out, whatever you want to call it, that's what it is. And the fact that the prices are so high is a direct result of campaign finance corruption. They stop competition with trademarks and copyrights by giving Congress campaign money. This hurts the general economy, it stops consumer confidence. Increased consumer confidence. It hurts the economy because everybody's buying drugs, they can't afford anything else. Well, increased consumer confidence results in increased economic growth, as Bill Maher pointed out, which results in more people paying taxes, which results in balancing the budget, which results in even lower taxes yet, which results again in increased economic growth or consumer confidence. Plus the fact it has to do with our ratio of imports and exports, and the technological advancement. And those are the two things that make the capitalist system work for the United States, work for the economy. The two tallest buildings in the world, which has reflective of the amount of wealth a country has. The amount of wealth has to do with the capitalist system and what makes it work. And what makes it work is the competition. Competition is saving technological advancement, ratio of imports and exports. So if you have a whole lot of exports and not many imports, and you increase, it has to do, you're strong on the international market with realistic prices. Right now the epinephrine you can't sell on the international market because it's too high priced. So we can't compete on the international market. You compete on the international market, the price goes down and you sell more, and so you have incentive for technological advancement, so you increase the technological advancement, and then you have more incentive for technological advancement, so you have some success with it, and pretty soon everybody in the world is buying from you, and increased technological incentive for technological advancement results in more technological advancement, and technological advancement results in more incentive for it, and then more money for technological advancement. So you have what, 3 or 4 catalysts there, which causes acceleration in technological advancement and economic growth, both, and that's how capitalism works. And the fact that they won't bring out that the corruptions, what stops has those prices so high, is actually anti-capitalist, it's anti-American, it's un-American, and it's non-democratic. Those are the 3 things, and that's what, and also it's like I say, it's a cycle, technological advancement and incentive. And you have more incentive, more technological advancement, more incentive, and more money. More money for it, and you have more incentive, more until I was advanced with the money, with both those things. What is it? X to the fourth, X to the third, something, I don't know. I'm not good at calculus. But it's something like that. And all these things should have been brought out by that report on ABC. And the reason they left them out is because they're in bed with the corruption. I guess I already said that. But anyway, I said this on other reports, but no one's watching them. I had one of them, I had 600 on one of them, and I haven't had one hit in the last. So anyway, I had to repeat it, and I may not get any hits on this one either, but I'm just hoping I do. Okay. Also, Trump, if he wants to win the election, he needs to bring Jill Stein into the debate, because the two have a lot of overlap. In other words, Jill Stein has a lot. Trump has a lot of progressive traits, and so does Jill Stein. And anytime you have three people in a debate, one, it increases your sovereignty. It would increase the sovereignty with the Bernie Sanders supporters, because Jill Stein is pretty much Bernie Sanders' platform. But it also means 2 against 1, because Jill Stein is anti-Hillary, and she has a whole lot of stuff on Hillary, which I talked about in other reports I did. But if Trump got her in there, they have a lot of common ground, and it's 2 against 1, and it makes the other one look bad. And if you really want to keep progressivism going, and Trump's the one to get in, and if he needs to put Jill Stein in there, and that would help him, because it takes votes away from Hillary, but also it makes Hillary look worse because it's 2 against 1, and it creates an illusion. And what else? He needs to bring out the place where they overlap, and one place where Trump and Jill Stein overlap has to do with the Iraq War. ABC did a report on Trump recently, which, like I say, ABC has a bias, but they did it, and they're in bed with Hillary, and they don't want the TPP, or they support the TPP, and they think she's the more viable choice for the TPP, which she is, which I think she is too. And so they're lying about Trump all the way, and they brought out a report on him that said, well, he didn't support the Iraq War. He says he did. Or he says he was opposed to it. And they said he supported it. They brought out tape on him where he said he supported it, but they should have done it the first time, but he didn't sound real strong for it, and this was right on the onset of the war. Well, Hillary supported the Iraq War all the way to the end of it, according to Bernie Sanders. But Hillary can't tell you what was wrong with it. The thing that was wrong with the Iraq War, well, like Trump said, they weren't the ones that knocked down the Trade Center. That was the Saudis that knocked the Trade. They were funding it. It had to do with Saudi influence. The Saudis essentially were funding Osama bin Laden, and it had nothing to do with Saddam. They were adversarial to Saddam, but it had to do with the fact that Saddam did business. I heard one report that said he was doing business with the EC, to get even with the Bushes. They have 3 oil companies, and Saddam started dealing with the EC, and that kicked basically the Bush's oil company in the balls. So Bush wanted to go over there and knock him off. I've heard a report like that. Well, can Hillary tell you all this stuff? I doubt it. She's just like the people that don't like the Dixie Chicks. But Trump was opposed to it. He said he was, and I believe him. I really do believe him. But Norman Schwarzkopf was opposed to the Iraq War from the beginning too. Well, he was a general, and he worked for HW. But he's one of the smartest generals we ever had. He has a 150 IQ. Well, Trump needs to bring out that he is on the same page with a general who had a 150 IQ, and he's also on the same page with Colin Powell, who resigned. Well, Hillary was supportive of the war even after Colin Powell resigned. Well, Trump ought to bring this out. If he wants to keep his, recover with his campaign, he needs to bring this out. And that this has a lot to do with who's president, because it means that Trump understands the difference between a practical war and an impractical war, and so does Jill Stein, and how to make a war practical. And a lot of the reasons the war is impractical, as Jill Stein has brought out, it has to do with the military-industrial complex and their lobbying and the campaign money and the campaign finance corruption and the corporate welfare. Essentially, they're giving all they want to go make a war because they make money off of it, and all this does is spread terrorism. She said you need to starve them. You don't give them your guns and everything. They have all of our weapons and everything. That's why there's such a problem, and that has to do with the military-industrial complex making money. Well, I would say that Trump and Jill Stein probably have a lot of common ground, and that may be why he doesn't like McCain. He said, but instead of knocking McCain's record and saying that he's not a good soldier because he got captured, That is not constructive. What he needs to do is talk about McCain's policy and why it's impractical and why it's inefficient and why we can't balance the budget because of the war, which is just giving guns to those people and making the terrorism problem worse, the military-industrial complex, and how it's a conflict of interest, with stopping the wars and balancing our budget. And him and Jill Stein need to get together and then look at John McCain's side of it, in my opinion, and see what John McCain says, and then try to point out where he disagrees with McCain instead of just criticizing and saying, that he was a bad soldier because he got caught. That doesn't. General George S. Patton reasoned pretty much the way Trump is. He said the same thing. Nobody ever won a war by dying for their country. Well, the thing is, General George S. Patton was not on the front line all through World War II. Someone else, the guy that went through the D-Day invasion, that said that, that made the statement that I went through that D-Day invasion, so some idiot could burn the flag. Those are the real heroes, in my opinion. Patton can't come out and say that when he wasn't right on the front line. You can make that claim too, and Trump wasn't either. Trump wasn't even over there. But he should be defending John McCain more than he is, and talking that bad about the military. I didn't quite agree with Patton either one of them. Pappy Boyington was probably did a lot more for the war than General Patton in a way. Because he shot down 40 of the enemy himself. Patton, someone else did it. But you can make your case a lot of ways, but Trump needs to get that squared away. Okay, I guess I said all that. But if he'd bring these things out and start talking and stick to the subjects, and instead of just knocking McCain and talk about McCain's policy and why he disagrees with it, and he probably has some good points against him. Jill Stein, I know she does. And he needs to get Jill Stein in the debate. He needs to bring out the 15% rule. Is corporate America has total control of the government. We all know that. Perot tried to knock him off. They knocked off Perot. Okay, Sanders tried to knock him off. They knocked off Sanders. They're at the bottom. They're at the bottom of it, even behind Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They're at the very bottom of the trouble. And they knocked off, and Trump needs to bring this out. Then they're going to try to knock him off. And if he'd bring this out, maybe get some support. He certainly should have the support from the Sanders people, which he doesn't. But I think they're being misled, and that's my whole claim here. Okay, I guess maybe that's all I've got on this. At least if there's anything else, I can do it another one, so this one won't be so long that people get bored and go to sleep before it's over with and shut it off. But anyway, thanks for listening.